Testing. 1 2 1 2. Let me know in the chat if you can hear me. We're about to dive into what's going on in these markets and why this may be happening, a little bit about some of the macro situation at hand, whether or not this is the beginning of the ultimate bubble popping here, right? We've got a lot of talk around is AI in a bubble. Obviously, we've had a nice run up in crypto, and some people are concerned with whether or not the cryptocurrency bull market is over. We also have some very interesting price action going on with gold, where obviously gold and silver have both been at all-time highs and continue to make new all-time highs for the past couple of weeks now. So we want to kind of dive into a little bit of what exactly is going on, why this is happening, and what's coming next, because there's a lot of blood in the crypto markets, and I think people are very afraid. Last week, we had the largest liquidation in crypto history, which only overtook technically what happened earlier this year during the tariff announcements and whatnot. So now before then, the liquidations that we had were nowhere near as large as they've been this time around. And there was a lot of different things about this liquidation that occurred where, I talked about it obviously in my most recent video where there was kind of like an actual issue with Binance, the exchange, that led to these liquidations, as well as like some very weird market activity that was clearly some sort of insider trading, or at least we can draw some conclusions around whether or not that it seemed kind of clear that that's what occurred. But, the thing that's so interesting is that we never get like the actual answers when these types of things happen in the crypto market. And I got a lot of comments on that video as well as the past one where someone said, if the more that I look at crypto, the more this seems like it's just a complete, utter scam. And I find that to be fascinating because if we really look at it, right, like these types of events have continued to occur throughout the entire crypto bull market. Throughout the entire existence of crypto. I'm checking in on my phone so I can make sure I can watch the chat live. So, okay, we got, can hear you. You good? RD in the building. Salute. Shake out before the breakout. Bull run over. Not crypto over. In the chat, what up? So yeah, guys, like major thing here that I'm wanting to kind of touch on today, and we'll pull up the charts in just a second, is like, first off, this stuff happens all the time in the crypto market, and especially in the middle of a bull market, right? You get these huge, massive liquidation events, usually right before you get some big move. So I'm personally not super phased. In fact, for the people that have been in my inner circle community, like we've been talking about, looking at the fact that we expect the prices to go lower before continuing higher here. And so yeah, I'll start to jump into the charts, and then we'll start to break down some of the macro news and like what's going on with gold and all that kind of stuff. So yo, what's good people? First off, how's everyone been weathering all of this? Like, is this one of those moments where you're like, someone else commented that they were like, I'm out of crypto now, like I don't want to have anything to do with crypto after this? Are you guys like feeling like you don't want to do crypto anymore? Are you feeling like this isn't fair? It's a completely rigged game. Is crypto a scam? Please let me know, guys, in the comments if crypto is a scam. All right, let me get okay, perfect. So let's take a quick look at this asset called Bitcoin, what could possibly be the biggest scam in all of modern history. Let's see, I think if we don't close below the 50-week MA for Bitcoin, there's still a chance. Nah, this isn't over. Dip buying according to chart levels. Just holding on for dear life right now. Francisco says, still in, I'm not even sweating it. Pedro said, this is just a dip. We'll continue buying. BTC will hit 1 million in a decade or two. So one thing about that too is like, one of the things that I always try to be careful about is like mixing the narratives, because we have two different things that's happening. We have the fact that on a long-term scale, right, Bitcoin continues to grow as an asset. Okay, if we zoom out a little bit and we just look at what's happened over the years and years. Oh, I'm on a logarithmic chart real quick. Hold on. If we look at, the growth of Bitcoin since 2008, obviously, well, this goes back to 2011, it's been growing, right? But then we also have the fact that we're going through a bull market at this particular moment in time. And so, yes, it does make sense that if you believe in the long-term viability of Bitcoin to continue to hold and buy, but then it also comes down to like when we're talking about on in the nearer term, right, the next 2 to 3 years, will Bitcoin continue to be a place to put your money in that time frame in order to protect that capital that you have, right? So I always tell people, look, we're pretty extended in this market right now, and we have the fact that we've had diminishing returns throughout every single bull market. So if we really look at the data, we've already gone up very significantly in this bull market. And I'll just go ahead and like do some quick markups for you guys, just to kind of paint the picture of what I'm trying to say. Don't get mad at me, by the way. You guys don't get mad at me for this. But I got to talk about the facts here. If we take from the trough to the peak of this previous bull market cycle in 2021, we went down to like 3,000 during the COVID crash. And we went up around 1,300%. It was the max. It was a little bit more than that, but I had some troubles. Okay, about 1,400% in that last cycle. Now, if we were to look back from the 2017 bull run, welcome in everybody. Still in, not sweating it. Okay, so I'm going to have some troubles finding that low there, but let's just do this for now. Point here, guys, is that we got diminishing returns. All right. So just something to keep your eye on. So let's just say for time's sake that that's a 7,500% gain over there. Over here, trough to peak in 2021, we have a 1,500% gain, right? So now this time around, right, from the trough to the top, we're going to expect it to be smaller than that 1,500%. And so far, we're at 700%, right? So just something to keep our eyes on. Like, I'm not saying that I don't think that Bitcoin will continue to grow here in this market cycle, but with that, we definitely want to be ready for major pullbacks that can happen very shortly after we get another big run up. So anyways, guys, welcome in everybody. We're kind of just looking at the Bitcoin chart at the moment, but I'm going to also dive into gold because I know that everyone here is not going to be a super Bitcoin fanatic. And then we'll also dive into some altcoins and things of that nature. And then we'll talk a little bit more about the macro picture. So the thing about what's been happening on the global scale here is we've had gold going absolutely nuts. Okay. And, you know, this isn't really a major surprise to people that have been paying attention to what central banks around the world have been doing. They've been buying gold. So countries are accumulating gold and have been really for the past, almost really decade or so. And now we're starting to see that kind of show up on the charts to where gold has now made all-time highs, going well beyond the levels that it was at in 2011, right after the financial crisis. We kind of had a major run up in gold, and then now we've had this massive run up since around pretty much late 2023. Gold started to run up, and this year it's continuing to go absolutely bonkers. We've got even in just the past couple of months here since August, we had 3,200 gold. Now we're at 4,300 gold. We've had a 33% rise in the price of gold. Now, for the people that hold gold, that is a huge congratulations to you. Let's talk about silver really quickly as well, because silver also has continued to make some really big moves. It's starting to catch up to gold. And in that, we've got it sitting here at about 50-ish plus dollars throughout that time frame. Let's see what's going on in the chat real quick. I'm ready for, Semi-Am says, I'm ready for whatever they throw this way. Faber says, been a holder for 8+ years. I'm not going anywhere. Artie says, it's not a scam. It has some scammy people. RD, that's right on. And then David, IJWT, says, buy the dip. They're going to regulate it. Bye. So yeah, that's another thing right here, right? Like let's talk about the facts real quick, because we have regulations that are coming in like very soon. First off, we just had the Stablecoin Genius Act passed. Now we've got the Clarity Act just sitting on the docket for Senate whenever they want to come back together. I don't know what's going on with all that too. We could talk about that a little bit as well. The government is still in the shutdown, if I'm not just completely out of the loop. And um, we're having this massive liquidation, scaring a lot of people off, right as we're about to get the largest legislation passed in cryptocurrency history, right? So definitely something worth considering that right before this, right, we're getting these massive pullbacks. Everyone's scared. Is the bull run over? And the thing that I've been telling everyone since the beginning of this year is like, once it was clear that we were going to start to get some legislations around crypto, the thing that I kept on saying was, well, that kind of perfectly lines up with where we're at in the 4 year cycle. So what I'm imagining here is that when it's time for us to get that massive runoff and the blow off top, I'm not going to be surprised if that's also lining up with the passing of all of this legislation. So far it's been the Genius Act. We haven't necessarily gotten that big run up from there. But if we get a huge run up that coincides with the passing of the Clarity Act, okay, that to me is going to lead to mass euphoria. Crypto will never be the same. This industry has completely changed. No more 4 year cycles. And in that scenario, I'm going to be very prepared for that to be the end of the bull market. So, what that means for you individually, right, always depends. But just something that I want to go ahead and put out there now because I'm not going to be surprised if that's the way that this all goes down. So, I'm going to catch up to the chat a little bit here. Bull run not over, says RD. So let's dive into the stock charts as well. I think that's going to be another little bit of time that we can spend here. Um, so we got the famous QQQ. So for people who don't know what the QQQ is, this is the most liquid NASDAQ ETF. It is offered by Invesco, one of the largest asset managers in the world, obviously behind the likes of BlackRock and Vanguard types of entities. And look, the truth is the NASDAQ is still playing around at all time highs. Now, that's on the monthly chart. Let's look at the daily chart. Once again, still really playing around with these all time highs. We had that big slide last Friday due to the tariff news that Trump put out around kind of retaliating against China. And as we can see here, like, yeah, that was a big slide, but the market's kind of just bouncing around in here. Now, what happens next will be definitely critical. And now we have an actual reason or catalyst for the market to turn over. One of the things as an investor that you always want to be looking out for is when is there going to be and what kind of a catalyst could there be to make your thesis actually work out? So let's say you've been bearish on the NASDAQ for the past 3 months. You would want to have in your mind a reason why the market is actually going to turn over and know what that actually looks like when it occurs. So if you're thinking about, once again, the NASDAQ going, the NASDAQ is in a complete bubble. All these AI companies are going to fail and they're only reporting, they're only having their, what did you call it? Their prices are only going up. Their valuations are only going up because of the fact that they're cyclically kind of investing in one another. Okay, cool. If that's what you believe, then in that case, you would want to think about what is actually going to lead to that meaning that the market is going to turn around, because the market doesn't care that the cyclical nature of all of these different things. For instance, earlier this year, we had an actual reason why, right, the market would want to slide, being that I believe it was over here. Somewhere in here, I think this was right here in February, we had the DeepSeek announcement. By the way, the article that released the results of the DeepSeek phenomenon had actually come out months prior to when the market actually reacted to that news in February of this year. And so, with that being said, there was um, like you could have been thinking, oh, this is an AI bubble. I think that the market is going to turn over. And if you had seen that article, then you could say that I think that a catalyst for the reason why the market will actually turn around is going to be that people are going to realize that China is way ahead of the US in their development of AI technology. And then when you see that narrative, you can say, oh, okay, bang, I'm on the money. This is potentially my time to actually act. If you hadn't already put yourself in the position to where you had some long-term, for instance, dated option that said, I believe that the market is going to come down below this level in the next 12 months. And in that scenario, right, now you're waiting for that catalyst to come out. Now, I don't necessarily recommend trying to trade ahead of a catalyst, but having an idea of what a catalyst could look like and then being prepared for it when it happens, so that when you get that opportunity to strike in the market, you're ready to go. And you're not having to think about, oh, is this the thing that I was trying to do? Or what am I, should I be doing this, and so on and so forth. So anyways, just wanted to kind of talk about that really quickly, because the thing about markets is that they can stay irrational longer than you can stay soft, and I believe is the quote. And the idea being that, oh, crypto is a huge bubble. Well, the people who believe that from the beginning, right, would have had to have so far endured, 20 plus years of that, right? For instance, Peter Schiff. Nothing against Peter Schiff, right? But like, if he really still believes that crypto is a bubble, then he's going to have to wait for the catalyst, right, to make that actually be true to come about. And that could be that Satoshi moves his coins, right? And then all of a sudden now Bitcoin is actually worthless. It's a complete bubble. Everyone's scared and so on and so forth. So, anyways, just wanted to kind of highlight that as you're an investor trying to come up with different ideas in the market and when you might want to actually think about acting on those things, because the Nasdaq right now has continued to roll higher and higher. And I'm not just talking about this year, I'm talking about for the past 2 decades, right? Almost, to be fair. I mean, ever since we had the '08 crash, the government has always kind of stepped in whenever there's big issues in the market. 2022, we got massive quantitative easing to kind of try to prevent this from occurring. Same thing in this little time that we had, obviously, in 2020. Like, the market was not going to go any lower than this because the government stepped in. And so, since we had that massive multi year sort of slump that we had after, really, the only real massive slump we had was after the dot com bubble. Okay. And so, from there, what happened? Years of a decline, and we never necessarily made up those gains that we had or that loss that we incurred until 2015, right? So 15 years later you got to see a return on your investment, and that's only in nominal terms. One of the things that I know we love to talk about over here in the crypto world is the inflation chart. So excuse me for getting off the rails a little bit here, but I just wanted to talk about, like, are we in a bubble? Are we in a bubble regarding AI, crypto, stocks, right? Is this a massive bubble that is about to pop? And I would say that if so, you don't want to get caught off guard waiting for the catalyst. You want to make sure that you have a really good idea of why the bubble is actually going to pop, because otherwise things can go on forever and forever. So, let's see here. You see possible scenarios for extended bull run. Do I see possible scenarios for the extended bull run? I would say that I saw something that I found very convincing uh, pretty recently, where the idea was like, the way that Bitcoin is moving right now, and wow, my computer doesn't want to load that chart, is very different from how it has been in the past. And that was kind of why I had my logarithmic chart pulled up a little bit earlier too. So let me pull that back up. Um, I hope you guys can see my screen. Yeah, okay. So we've had a much more steady rise, right, in the price of Bitcoin, for instance, compared to these other massive runs up that we had in the past, right? So if you look over here from 2011, this was a straight up vertical move on a logarithmic chart. Same thing when you look at that next bull run going from 2015 to 2017, vertical movement. Pretty similar when you look at 2017 to 2021. You had a push up, relax, massive vertical run up. Now, you can tell that this one is a lot less that way compared to these previous ones. And I would also say that if you look at this channel right here, right, this right here is moving way more smoothly than what we saw in the past. And obviously the number one thing that has changed in this time frame, my goodness, has been the fact that we have ETFs, right? So around, I think it was the very end of 2023-ish, we had the ETFs being announced and launched. So we have Bitcoin ETFs that came in since here. And ever since then, we've had a much more gradual rise in the price of this asset. It's not so massive, hundreds of percent at a time, big runs up. And in fact, on top of that, for all of us who have really been around, we're noticing that when the price is hitting new all-time highs, it's pretty much immediately kind of retreating from there. The first time that happened in 2024, we hit that all-time high and then retreated. Kind of just hung out for 8 months. This was a long period of time to just be moving sideways. And then we finally got a proper push off, don't get me wrong, and then rolled over. And then very recently, we had a big push off above that level of 112,000. And then what did we do? We barely poked up above it and then rolled over. And then even most recently, we made 125,000 Bitcoin, which was like $1,000 higher. What have we done? we've rolled right back over. So I think one of the things to keep an eye on here is that I do think it's a little bit possible that we could just continue this trend where we get this, like people are saying, super cycle up until a point to where we actually do get these massive run up and massive overvaluation. I'm going to once again put my foot down and say that that's going to line up with some sort of a regulatory or macroeconomic narrative that says that Bitcoin is going to change the world. We get some massive run up to where it gets super bubbly, and then we do have an extended bear market. I don't think that we're just not going to have a bear market anymore just because institutions are in the game. I think what could happen is we do get a much more gradual push up. And then at some point, retail is going to be like, whoa, what's going on? Oh, I have access to this in my 401k now. Okay, cool. Let's do that. And right around then, when Coinbase is at the Super Bowl, when when Polymarket, right, is having Tom Brady do commercials for them. These are the moments when, first off, here's the way to look at it. Like, these companies have more money in those times, right? Because the price of all of these assets are going up. So what are they going to do? They're going to reinvest that money into their business during that time frame. And when that happens, that's when you kind of can say, well, okay, this is a clear sign that all of this excess money that's in the system right now is being spent. They're essentially selling right at those moments. It's kind of one way to look at it. These companies are selling crypto by going out and investing into their companies by running these massive ad campaigns and so on. And so for you, that could be a signal of, well, technically, these big companies are selling and taking risk off the table. Maybe I should continue to think about ways that I can take risk off the table as well. Now, inside of my community, we also talk about ways to generate passive income. And that's another thing that we're always doing. By the way, click the link in the description to get access to my free Discord. And we're going to continue to have some free education in there, as well as obviously keeping you guys up to date with everything that I'm doing. So if you're here right now, definitely hit the like button on the stream. Come on now, hit that like button and sign up for the free Discord by the link in the description. It asks you for your email and your phone number. And then after that, you will be redirected to the actual Discord. So anyways, guys, look, yeah, the market is moving very differently than it ever has in the past. And so in that way, it is different this time. I will admit that. But I don't think that means that we just like never have a bear market again, right? I think maybe it could be a little bit less dramatic as well, right? Less dramatic to the upside, less dramatic to the downside. I do think that's a possibility. So let's see here. VI People says this is the insiders filling their bags before takeoff. I'm going to be honest. I 100% agree with you. Like, it's just not an uncommon pattern, especially when you've got so many new people coming into the space. Like, these types of moments that we had over the past week completely shake them out. They're like, I've had conversations with people that are coming in and like buying full Bitcoins, because we got to think about it. Now we're having people who have real money that are coming into this space, right? They're seeing that legislation is being passed. They're seeing the president of the United States endorse this technology. And, whatever he's saying right now is kind of what's going. So, so you want to definitely be listening to whatever it is that he's saying is what's next, or what it is that he believes in. And so, definitely worth considering that we have a different class of investor that's entering the crypto space right now. And if you're new to the game, welcome to crypto. Welcome to crypto, because this is exactly how it goes down. And it's not necessarily always fun. And in fact, you're coming in at the part of the game when it's probably the least fun, because you know what? This is going to be how it goes. It's going to be like, oh, it's la-di-da-di-da-di-da, la-di-da. Oh, I'm going to buy a whole Bitcoin right here. When, by the way, we're up hundreds of percent in the market. And then you get these massive 20% types of drawdown. We haven't even done that yet, by the way. So everyone's freaking out about this because they got liquidated. But I'm not going to be surprised if Bitcoin gets down a little bit lower now, and we get like a real proper bull run retracement. Okay. And then from there, right, we start talking about crazy numbers. They're like, oh, I'm scared now. I sold my Bitcoin. I don't want to do this. This isn't fun. Right, is what's about to happen right here. And then right after that, we get the massive bull run, the massive runoff, and everybody's happy. And all the people who didn't sell, they're like, oh, I'm a genius, and this is the way that the world is going to go into the future. And then we get that massive bear run that happens right after that moment. So anyways, I'm not saying that that's what has to happen, but this is exactly how I'm looking at this moment in the market is, like you said, VI pools. This is that moment where insiders are filling their bags right before takeoff. So let me go ahead and read some more of these comments. Do you think that XRP will fly from the ETFs? All right, fine, guys. Let's talk about it. It's funny because if you guys watch me pretty closely, you know that I like XRP, but I don't really like make all of my videos about it. I kind of try to keep it, you know, to its place, right? In the whole overall theme of the stuff that we talk about. But one of the things here that I also want to point out is look at that wick. We call this a scam wick, right? I mean, oh my goodness. I forget which exchange this is. Which exchange is this right here? This is on Coinbase. And this isn't even the lowest that I've seen it. So hold on, let me find the one where it was like, okay, yeah, on Bitstamp. Oh my goodness. um, you know, I hate to laugh because I know that there was a lot of people that had to deal with this in a way that was probably not very fun. But when it comes to leverage trading, like you just got to be super careful. And honestly, I don't even think it mattered how careful you were. If you had on any sort of leverage on XRP at this moment, like I think even like 1.1, like in this wick right here, you probably would have gotten liquidated. I mean, you're talking about within minutes, right? You had the price of XRP go from 280 down to, on this exchange specifically, as low as 100, as at 158. You had a 43% drop in the price of XRP in that very short period of time. Okay. So, when you're seeing this type of manipulation in the market, by the way, on one of the strongest assets as far as market structure goes, like this has been holding up very well throughout all the turmoil that we've been going through throughout the year. And you see, like, you would have thought that down here was like the level at which, it would never go any lower than that, right? How could XRP go from $3 and 70 cents all the way back down here to $1.50 something, $1.60 technically? No way, right? And so I talked about this on my live podcast with everybody who was around. We talked about this concept of max pain theory. And the idea being that, like, when there's leverage in any system, and this is actually something that comes from, the options field. So let me just go ahead and pull it up real quick. Max pain theory in options trading suggests that the price of an underlying asset, such as a stock or index, will gravitate toward a specific strike price as the option's expiration date expires or approaches. This price, known as the max pain price, is the point at which the greatest number of options contracts, both calls and puts, would expire worthless, causing the maximum financial loss for the largest number of options buyers. So look, technically this is like an options thing, but it also kind of just works for leverage period. Because the truth of the matter is that in the game of leverage, there's only so many players that actually have the amount of capital necessary to weather like the biggest of all storms. So if I'm trading with leverage and I'm not sitting on an account with $1 billion, then there's a certain amount of market movement that's going to knock me out no matter what. Right. And you got to think about it like, just as an example, there's only going to be like the more money that someone has in an account, exponentially, there's going to be fewer people that sit in that group, right? So, for instance, there's going to be, let's say, a million people, or there's like 14 million millionaires in the world, or something like that. There's like millions and millions of millionaires. And then when it comes down to how many people have 10 million, it might be like, I don't know, like 100,000 people max. And then when it comes to how many people have 100 million, it might be like, 50,000 people. I'm not doing this very well, but like the amount of billionaires is in the thousands, but then the amount of people that have like 10 billion is in like the tens of people. You know what I'm saying? So the point is that there's an exponential curve to how much money people actually have in their accounts. And so what happens with leverage is that there's certain like points in the market where no matter who it is that we're talking about, there's only a handful of players that can weather price going down below this level right here at $1.60. Like 90% of people, maybe even 99% of people that are using leverage are going to be wiped out at that point. And so when you're playing that game, you just want to keep that in mind that like you're playing a game that is not necessarily going to work out too well if you don't have a massive account that you can weather this kind of volatility through. And there's always going to be a moment. There's always going to be that point where essentially what you've seen here is what's called a stop hunt, right? So a liquidity hunt is another way to look at it. I know I got some ICT people in here, so shout out to you. I'm gonna get back to the comments in just a second, but this is one of those things that you really want to look at. Is like markets, especially markets that have excessive amounts of leverage. As a market maker, my job is to get as much liquidity out of the market as possible. And so if I'm going to try to set prices and first off, do my job and make as much money as I can as well, then I'm going to push markets to the extremes where there's a ton of people who can't weather that storm, right? So, where does the most money sit that I can then take advantage of so that I can get my positions or my clients' positions filled? And in the case of what we can see visibly on the chart, there are people who have been long XRP since, let's say, right here in June, right? So there's people that have been long in the market ever since then. And they got long in here. And then they got long in here. And they got long in here. And you know where they put their stop loss? They put their stop loss right there. Same thing from back here. Where did those people who've been long XRP ever since April, where did they put their stop loss? They put their stop loss right there. Okay. And so in that event, what happens here is we get this cascading amount of orders where bang, once you hit that level, there's like not a whole lot of anything going on until you get down here and there's a ton of liquidity down there. And so what market makers are doing is pushing prices down to those levels so that buy orders can occur there. You're selling and we're buying down here. So you can practice this on your own, by the way. You can play that game by, I've got someone in my community who has been able to buy Bitcoin throughout all of this volatility because they've set limit orders. Okay. And so you kind of just want to be cognizant of buying at the market is probably one of the riskiest things that you can do. I went on a major tangent there. I hope you guys don't mind that. Let me let me get back to the chat and let's look at what's happening because we're also going to get the market close here in the next 30 minutes and we'll see what everyone's talking about there as well. So you guys should subscribe to the Memes in Markets show. Keith and Ben go live every Tuesday and Thursday at noon. They discuss and teach so much. Thank you, RD, for that. Yeah, so if you haven't already seen that, I am going live every Tuesday and Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern with my guy, Ben Levitt. And we're running this show called Memes and Markets. And I think, honestly, it's a really cool thing. At least it's a lot of fun. I'll just say that. And we talk about the memes, we talk about the markets, we talk about what's happening and how culture and markets are kind of intertwining with one another. So definitely check that out and subscribe to us over there. Okay. Oh no, get back into the game because Keith Smith said, I remember selling at 40. Selling what? I guess Bitcoin at 40. Okay. Saint MTE, is there anyone in here that believes we've topped? Hey, it's possible. It's possible. I don't subscribe to that personally, but I never, you know, in the game of investing and in trading, there's pretty much never a zero chance of things going whatever way that you think it might not go. So, and they blocked us from buying until XRP hit $2, said VI Peoples. Yeah, there was we had the lawsuit against against Ripple that definitely made it a lot more difficult for people during that time to get their hands on this. Keith D, do a poll to see how many people are still bullish and those are bearish. That's a good idea. The problem is I'm really new to YouTube and have no idea how to do that. Let me see. But yeah, so anyways, I kind of wanted to zoom out a little bit because one thing that we haven't done so far is talk about like the macro scene and like some of the other stuff that's going on regarding what is actually happening off the charts. So let's talk about that real quick because we obviously had last week this war, this trade war that's going on with China, and we had our favorite guy, Mr. Trumpy, talking about retaliating against him, and then a bunch of other follow-up commentary around how I guess that's not exactly what he's trying to do here. So let me figure out how to do this poll real quick, y'all. Okay, that's not happening at the moment. Actually, I'm gonna have to learn that. That's not fun. I sorry about that. Don't know how to do that yet. What's up, boss? What is bubble popping? Says Dylan Pique. What is bubble popping? I don't know. The NYC Zoriqua, Zoe Riqua. Why are you bullish on Cardano? I wouldn't say that I'm like overly bullish on Cardano. I'm not sure where you got that implication, but I think actually what Charles is doing regarding some of the projects that they're building out on Cardano are actually very interesting. I do like the fact that they spent a lot of time working out their consensus mechanism when a lot of people have not, and they just kind of threw up something and said, "Huh, I've got a blockchain," and really like you don't really need a blockchain for a lot of different things unless you have a solid consensus mechanism. Uh, so those are a couple of things that I wanted to say about that. But I'm not like some overly bullish Cardano guy. That's Ben. All right. So if you catch us on memes and markets, you'll see me making fun of him for being super deep in the Cardano, and him making fun of me for being such an XRP head. Okay. So I think rate cuts. Josh says, I think rate cuts and the end of QT will cause markets to do one final pump into Q1 2026. So yeah. So I'm like, I'm probably gonna have to come on here with like a little bit more preparation in the future, because like these are the kinds of things that I definitely wanted to talk about, and for some reason my computer doesn't want me to go there right now, and I just can get all over the place. All right, well apparently that's just not a thing. Maybe the CME. No, there's got to be a reason why that's happening. So what I'm doing right now, guys, is I'm pulling up the Fed Watch tool, because yeah, there's a really good chance that we continue to get rate cuts. And that right there could absolutely continue to lead us to, okay, maybe the Fed Watch tool is actually down. Maybe there's so many of us that are like checking out the CME right now that they can't handle it. So anyways, let's read this article around Trump says 100% tariffs on China, not sustainable, still plans to meet President Xi. So the summary here is that Besant is going to speak with Chinese vice premier, I guess, today. And Trump is going to meet with the president of China in South Korea. WTO chief calling for U.S. China to ease tensions. Yeah, probably not the greatest thing that we've got a massive trade war happening between the two largest economies in the world. So, U.S. President DJT said his proposed 100% tariffs on goods from China would not be sustainable, but blamed Beijing for the latest impasse in trade talks that began with Chinese authorities tightening control over rare earth exports. Asked whether such a high tariff was sustainable and what that might do to the economy, he replied, "It's not sustainable, but that's what the number is. They forced me to do that," he said in an interview with Fox Business Network that was broadcast on Friday. So, essentially, guys, he's kind of like trying to, you know, he's trying to go hard on China, and I think he's also realizing that that's not necessarily going to work completely. But this guy's a negotiator, right? So he's trying to, it's like when you go into the negotiation, you set the high price, and then you kind of let people work down from there. I think that's kind of the strategy, guys. I think that's what he's trying to do. I think that's what he's trying to do right now. So let's not let's see how all this stuff plays out if you're an American, and if you're in China, probably keep going hard at this guy, because the truth is China has a lot of leverage. Especially when it comes to the rare earth exports. They're responsible for something like 90% or something crazy of the rare earth exports that are needed in defense capabilities in the United States and around the world. So definitely something to be cognizant of. Do you guys want me to keep going through charts, or should we talk about the macro? Because this is something that I'm very conflicted upon. It's like, I know my crypto people want to go super hard onto the charts, but then I know that there's people that aren't super deep into crypto that are like, whatever, like, we can talk about anything else. So I think one thing that we can also look at real quick is like, what are the indices around the world doing? Because this can also tell us a little bit about like what's really happening. So the Nikkei index, which is the top stocks in Japan, is doing pretty well at the moment, not really flinching too much. Let's look at the Hang Seng index, which is out of, I believe, Hong Kong. Hong Kong, some of the largest stocks in China, but listed on the Hong Kong exchange. A little bit of a slide, but nothing major. Nothing major. Let's look at the DAX real quick. DAX has been moving sideways for quite some time. So the DAX is the 40 largest companies in the German market, which by the way, in Germany, they're the largest economy in Europe, if I'm not confused. And that's why we look at the DAX, because it's a very good representation of like where the EU economy is kind of doing. We have the FTSE, the FTSE, which is the British stock market, and that's been doing pretty well ever since we had the tariff phenomenon going on. It's doing pretty fantastic. So, anyways, that's kind of like the global level, but you guys probably care more about stuff like, let's talk about Apple real quick. What's Apple doing? Apple sitting at 253, not at an all-time high, but also not doing too poorly. Now, the real winner, the real thing that everybody wants to know about, let's talk about NVIDIA real quick. NVIDIA is still doing massively well, right? I think my favorite to look at in the tech world has actually been Netflix. No, it's moving sideways. Netflix has been on a crazy run throughout earlier in this year, and now it's moving a little bit sideways, but this one has been quite a stock throughout these past couple of years. I mean, look at that. Ever since the lows of 2022 era. I mean, it got hit though. Let's be clear. It did take a big beating, but now it's pushing, right? Now it's pushing pretty hard. So anyways, that's Netflix. Let's talk about Tesla real quick, because Tesla, talk to me if you're a big Tesla fan. Talk to me. Do I trade currency? I do. Actually, Dylan, I do trade currency. Raphael says NQ is better. NQ is better than what, my friend? We got memes and markets in here. How do you feel about Apple long term? I'm gonna be honest. I really don't pay a whole lot of attention to like stocks in that way. I really only look at things like my man was saying, Raphael. I only look at the NQ. I look at the ES, which is the S&P 500, and then I look at the RTY, meaning the Russell. So I really always take a very top-down approach to markets, and I don't look too much into the specifics of companies. But if you did want to look at some of the specifics of a company, one of my favorite sites, and this is obviously super basic, is Apple. And we did an episode on memes and markets last week where we were talking about the valuation of companies in the AI sector, and we were looking at some of their data. At least that's kind of where I kind of took an approach of like, are we in a bubble, right? Is this AI thing one big bubble? And one of the metrics that I was looking at to kind of determine whether or not we might be in some sort of a bubble is what is called the PE ratio. Okay. And so the PE ratio is the price to earnings ratio. Essentially, it comes down to what is the price that I'm paying for the earnings in the company on a yearly basis. So this one, right, it says TTM after this. So this is the trailing 12 months. Over the last 12 months, how much is the price right now for the earnings that the company has had over the last 12 months? So if the company made $1 over the past 12 months, then the price of the stock right now is saying that I'm paying $38 for that $1 of earnings that we've had. And the earnings, I believe, by the way, is not just the revenue, but instead the actual profits the company has. So anyways, I feel like every time I pull up stuff that's like not the chart specifically, I feel like people drop off. I could be reading that wrong. I'm very new to all this, so I don't really know what I'm looking at when it comes to all that. But anyways, guys, Ali Turks gave me the skeleton emojis. Talk to me about what that is. NVIDIA looks choppy. I agree. But also, look at this Tesla chart, y'all. Ew. And this is on a weekly chart, by the way. That's pretty gross. Anyways, so when you look back to 2019, you had this incredible growth. Okay. And then 2022, we got the pullback that everybody experienced. And really, like, we haven't really made any new to all-time highs ever since that October 2021 scenario. And back then, what we had was massive easing in the economy, right? And that's one of the things that we've been talking about here that someone brought up in the chat, and that I'm trying to get pulled up and over here. It's like we have the federal funds rate at a place where it's about to start going lower, right? So we're about to get easier money in the economy. Lower interest rates means more possibilities for investment. And in that scenario, right? We're just going to be looking for, all right, does that mean that companies now have money that they can throw into other companies, more money that they can throw into investing and growing their own earnings as well? And in that scenario, right, then this market that we're seeing now that we feel is overextended could continue to go in that direction. Uh, Very clearly, we had a conversation not too long ago. Someone asked around, um, well, technically, the federal employment levels in the United States are really bad. So if the employment rate in the United States is really bad, then technically, shouldn't the economy be doing poorly? And one of the things that we like to talk about inside our community is that we have two different things. We have the economy itself, and then we have the actual interest rates. Excuse me. Wow. We have the economy itself, and then we have the markets. And the markets can easily perform while the economy is not. And then the question becomes, when do those two things kind of come back and snap back into sync, or do they ever? Right. And in the world that we live in today, I think the answer to that is that, like, not necessarily. So, I think what I'm going to do here for you guys to get the interest rate, because this is killing me, we're going to look at SOFR real quick, because um, I'm sure actually you can just pull it up over here too. Yeah, the effective federal funds rate. My goodness. So the Fed funds rate is going down, and we had a nice amount of a pause that we went through from pretty much all of this past year, and now we're starting to get lower, and we're probably about to also dip down again on October 29th when it comes to the Fed rate's next decision. And so, with that being the case, like, that could send markets flying. We have to always remember that markets are forward looking, right? So even if the economy is like not doing too well right now, if we get lower interest rates, the markets are going to say, oh, well, in the future, that means that there will be more investment, and therefore earnings will continue to grow. And in that scenario, I'm willing to pay because I know that those earnings are going to grow. So I'll pay more for earnings because I know that they're going to grow in the future. So prices can continue to go up if, right, we get this funds rate coming down. Now, the other side of that story is that, well, if the Fed is dropping rates, then that probably means that the economy is in a really bad spot. And they're usually going to be, reacting a lot slower, right, to the things that are happening in the data that we're getting. Now, the truth of the matter is that the employment data that we've had this year was actually kind of not given to us very well until, right, in like Q3, they went back and revised all the numbers. And they were like, oh, by the way, like, we've had some of the worst employment that we've had in quite some time. Oh, cool. Thanks for letting us know. But they let us know that well after the fact. Memes and markets says Apple's reliance on being at the top mobile device. Oh, on being the top mobile device concerns me. If they don't crack AI integration into that medium, things could change. The ecosystem is its lifeblood. I definitely think that's something to consider when it comes to Apple because, yeah, I mean, the iPhone is the major thing. Now, to be fair, they also have a weird grip on the computer market. And it's something that I've been in the market for a new computer recently, and I'm like, why is Apple like the go-to for certain types of fields? And then why do people so, like, almost to a cult-like nature, like, hate Apple's computers? Um, so that's another thing that I think is just super interesting is like, well, yes, they have the iPhone as their major product. I wonder, actually, I don't know the amount of the percent of their revenue that is, but they definitely also have a nice grip on the computer market as well. Let's see. Yes, AI bubble, says RD. Rasmus Lingberg Lungberg says, I'm gonna go live in the woods because everything is a bubble. I'm waiting for the VIX 30 plus. Let's talk about the VIX. Let's talk about the VIX. So, who was it that said that? Buck 52,000 said, I'm waiting for the VIX to be 30 plus. Then I'll deploy some funds on the market. Okay, cool. Okay. Yeah. So the VIX is the volatility index, and this is actually calculated using options of the S&P 500. That's something that I did not know for quite some time. Um, so technically, this is actually based around what the prices are for the implied volatility of S&P 500 options. So yes, the VIX does measure the volatility of the market, but it's good to know that that's kind of how it's derived. So anyways, Buck 52,000, or I kind of forgot what it was, said that he's waiting for VIX to go above 30. Okay. Now, what's interesting here is that when we get these big spikes in the VIX, essentially this is happening when stocks are sliding down. Okay. Um, Volatility technically means volatility, right? Up and down. But what happens is the VIX rises once again when the prices of these options of put options essentially gets overextended. Is pretty much, I'm pretty sure how that works. So, anyways, when you get VIX, let's just look at it real quick. Let's just look at it. Usually, right, it's in a pretty tight band. And what happens is you get these big spikes in the VIX that happen throughout history. And those moments, for instance, earlier this year were, times where volatility was super high. We had a 57 VIX back in the tariff announcements earlier this year. So when the VIX gets high, usually, right, when the VIX is getting extended like that, that's usually going to mean that that's the end of the major slide that you're looking at, because VIX levels don't usually stay extended that high for very long. Now, sometimes you have extended areas in the VIX where it's just elevated, period, right? So you can see that there's kind of like this general baseline that you have in the VIX as well. But like, let's go back and look at 2008 real quick, just as an example, because 2008 we had a prolonged bear market. So this right here was a pretty long period of time where the VIX continued to rise higher. So the thing is what people typically look at is like the standard deviations of the VIX, meaning how far away from the typical levels is the VIX now? Is it an entire standard deviation away? And if it is, right, you can call that a long tail event. You have the normal distribution curve, and you're sitting at towards one of the higher ends of that bell curve. And so usually when that occurs, it's less likely that you get further away in that bell curve, meaning that, let's say the standard deviation level, the first standard deviation was like 30 VIX. And then if you get to the point where you're at a 60 VIX, well, now you're at double, right, the typical standard deviation from whatever is in the middle of that bell curve. And when that occurs, essentially the event that's occurring to where you're 2 times out is much less likely to continue, and you're much less likely to get any further higher than that second or even that first standard deviation level. And so the way that people look at these elevated levels in the VIX is that, well, typically that's going to mean that the amount of volatility in the market is going to only go down from there. And so his point here is that, well, once the VIX gets up to 30, then that is when I'm going to actually go ahead and start to buy in the market, because that's going to be essentially one standard deviation ish level. I don't really know the exact numbers of where that stands from where VIX is normally at. And therefore, the volatility should then subside from there. And now, obviously, that works if there's not some prolonged bear market occurring. And that obviously also here, the VIX is specifically for the S&P 500, and the overall stock market is how people use it as a gauge. But I love that strategy. I love that idea of, hey, once VIX gets to a certain level, maybe I don't know the math that you've done to come up with the number 30, but there is definitely some strategies that make sense around selling volatility as it gets expensive, is kind of how options traders will look at that. So let's see what some people are saying in the chat. Alt season or not? I honestly, like, the thing that gives me any confidence about alt season is that everyone is saying that we won't have it, and I'm like, okay, cool, I like that. So the thing to notice about altcoins is that we actually have not had them even make an all-time high yet. So what I'm looking at right now is okay, I'm like, what am I looking at? I'm looking at the total market cap, total crypto market cap minus stablecoins and minus Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so this is essentially altcoins, subtracting out the Ethereum and the stablecoins. So am I losing my mind? Total 3 ES. Okay, yeah, I don't know what I was just looking at. So according to this chart, right, we haven't actually made an all-time high in altcoins ever since we had the all-time high in 2021. So we had a really nice run up in 2024, and then this year we have continued to fail to reach that previous high that we made in 2024. Whereas for Bitcoin, on the other hand, or the rest of the entire crypto market, we have continued to make all-time highs throughout this time frame. And so, to be clear, a lot of people are wondering, hey, is this actually going to lead? Are we actually going to get an altcoin season, or has the fact that we've had all these ETFs going into Bitcoin and all this institutional capital going to Bitcoin mean that there will not be that same level of demand for altcoins? Now, the thing that I would bring up in that situation is the fact that we have a ton of pending ETFs. Let's see if we can find some of them real quick, because there's these big long lists of all these ETFs. And someone asked earlier, I forgot to respond, is like, do I think that the ETFs will help to support XRP? Wow, it took me like probably 45 minutes to come back to that question. I got caught up. Yeah, I do think so. I mean, we've seen the impact that it's had on the rest of the market. And so at the end of the day, when we're looking at all of these other altcoins that potentially could have some ETFs backing them, or ETFs offering them, it just puts these assets in an entirely different class of capital that can now be allocated towards these assets. Now, we've seen in the past hedge funds, pension funds find creative ways to get exposure to these assets. But the truth of the nature is that there's really not a way to where it's standardized and to where you can know, oh, okay, I'm just gonna buy this ETF. It's not anything different than I've ever done before. I'm just gonna buy the ETF and it's cool. It's crypto. Okay, cool. Crypto's a new thing now. There's legislation around it. I'm cool with that. So those two things I think are still pending, that are gonna determine whether or not we have this institutional backing for whether or not we get an altcoin season. It's the Clarity Act and it's these ETFs. And now the thing that the SEC has been doing, if I'm not incorrect, has been continuing to push down the deadlines for these ETFs. So that's definitely concerning to people around, like, okay, well, is this going to line up with the rest of the market and the bullish nature of it and whatnot? So I'm not sure if this article is going to tell me what I'm looking for. Okay, so the race for crypto ETF approvals is far from over. With altcoins like Solana, Doge, XRP, and ADA next in line, issuers and investors are watching closely. So on July 7th, yeah, the SEC published fresh guidance on disclosure. So they reinforced the compliance bar and supporting faster, more standardized reviews. A more generic listing framework is also on the table, which, if adopted, could shrink timelines materially. So we've got really big companies, by the way, guys. These are not like random companies that are issuing, that are trying to get these ETFs approved. So we have Franklin Templeton, okay, like one of the largest asset managers in the world. We have Bitwise, who's just in the game, they've been around for a long time. We have Fidelity, another one of the largest asset managers in the world. Canary Capital, CoinShares, Grayscale, and Van Eck, that then amended specifically their S1s for Solana products. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff that's been going on this year, guys. So another thing regarding the institutional side of the market that's happened this year is we've had Solana, okay, on the CME. So, like, I'm just gonna go ahead. The CME has Solana futures contracts now, and that's been going on since April. So, in case you missed it, that was a really big deal. And I don't know if you guys were around, but at that time there was these rumors. There was like this tweet that came out of like, oh, like someone found some web page where they had put out that they were going to release these Solana futures in like a couple of months or something. And people are like, oh, no, 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 that's fake. Next thing you know, the CME actually launched these Solana futures, and they've also launched XRP futures. And that is massive to have futures contracts for these assets. Now, one of the things that I saw someone point out recently is that, okay, although these futures contracts are representing these assets, they don't lead to the physical purchase of these assets. So that's something to keep in mind. But the thing about having these futures products in place is that that does set the precedent for there being the acceptance of the spot ETFs, essentially, that will occur as well. So you have the futures contracts themselves, and then you have the futures ETFs, and then you get the actual spot ETFs that come after that. And those spot ETFs do require that the companies or the issuers of those ETFs actually go out and purchase the actual crypto itself. So the thing about futures is that you're technically just taking a bet, right, on the underlying, and you don't have to actually settle in the underlying depending upon the futures contracts that you're settling. And these are financial futures where that's not occurring as much. Okay, cool. Hasn't the Fed already started cutting? Yes, they have, and they're going to continue to cut. Okay. I think being able to trade the trend swings is most important. Makes bear or bull irrelevant. More like a bison. Yeah, I mean, not as easy as it sounds, but yeah. Um, okay. But when you're in deficits, I can see how it is hard to compound those losses. I get it. I do. Thanks, Saint MTE, for your comments there. Philip says, what are your opinion on KRKNF? That's a lot of letters. Okay. It's a robotic company. I don't know anything about KRKNF. I see that chart though. Listen, I see that chart though. Let me zoom out on it real quick. Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about this, but it's been performing. Let's see. Kraken Robotics. You guys just got some alpha from this guy, Philip. Let's see if we can find some news about it. It's a Canada-based marine technology company providing complex subsea sensors, batteries, and robotic systems. Okay. Let's see what else is going on in the chat, guys. So yeah, guys. Is the everything bubble popping? My answer to that is not yet. I think we've got the Fed lowering rates. I think that could lead to one final blow off top. And with that, then we could probably see some bearish action. And that's both for crypto and for stocks. I think we're still super early and we would need some sort of a real catalyst as far as the stock market to get us to come down any lower. And I personally don't see that coming. Obviously, you can't see a catalyst coming until it comes. But I'm personally just not going to be like sitting on the sidelines or trying to buy puts right in the stock market right now, as an example. Let's see. Okay. So yeah, guys, that's kind of my conclusion. I hope that you were able to take something away from all of this. I know that there's a lot of stuff in the chats. I have a real problem with like you guys get me going on stuff and then I'll kind of just go off the rails. Okay. Thoughts on Sui? No, I actually don't follow Sui. I'm not gonna lie. I know that they're doing really cool stuff, and I know that they have some on-chain revenues. And I know that Raoul Pal follows him very close and he likes it a lot. Chart right now is getting hurt, but that's part of being an altcoin. The real question is, when do we ever see a moment where altcoins stop being so dependent upon Bitcoin, right? That's the thing that I'm most interested in, is because it feels like there's all these different types of ideas of how these things are going to have all these incredible use cases. But the fact of the matter is that like right now, like they just move with Bitcoin and their valuation doesn't have anything to do with anything else. So, other than narrative, by the way, because you can get these really hype narratives around these different tokens and then they run off just because of that alone. One asset that I will say tends to move very differently than a lot of these altcoins. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. This little thing called XRP, it really does move a lot differently. We saw in 2024 when it had this massive run up on its own. Like it was like, didn't care about what anyone else was saying. And not only that, but it stayed really strong in here, right? Like this overall structure has not necessarily been broken yet. And I do find that fascinating about that asset. But anyways, let's see here. For the short term, Bison says for the short term, we're 1.2 macro bad news events away from the bear market. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. I definitely don't disagree with that. VI people said, remember the SEC and CFTC said a week or two ago that they are going to remove that extra lengthy process as well, right? Oh, okay, gotcha. No, I haven't actually seen that. So Raphael says, waiting on the HBAR ETF. Nicholas Hayes says, thoughts on Solana long term. My thing about Solana, I was actually traveling last year and I ran into this guy, very, very smart guy. And he was talking about Solana. And I've never been a huge fan of Solana due to the fact that it just constantly goes down. One of those things that like you don't really look for in a blockchain. But he raised an important point to me in that he said he kind of tied it into the whole debacle with the man SBF himself and how they had done so much kind of like political stuff at that time. And I thought to myself, I was like, some of the times I look at some of these things as very political instruments, right? Um, some of the technology here that we're looking at isn't necessarily all that important as much as the political implications of the technology itself. Even just if you just look at Bitcoin alone, right? Like the political implications of Bitcoin are massive. If there is an instrument, a financial instrument in the world that no government can control, right, then it becomes a place where power can essentially be distributed without governments of the world being able to be involved in that process. And so that's how I look at Bitcoin, and that's how I look at a lot of cryptos and blockchain. So, anyways, when we were talking about Solana, he kind of made it clear to me. He was like, "Well, what if Solana is actually a part of this political sphere that you might be missing?" And so, and then, funny enough, right? This was a year ago, so David Sachs and all that other stuff wasn't even going on at the time. But now we've got David Sachs in the White House, and he's an investor in Solana. I think he sold his positions or whatever. I remember him saying he sold his private equity positions. And I was like, hold on, wait a minute. Like, why did you say specifically you sold your private equity positions? Like, because he probably still owns some of the Solana thing, but I don't know exactly to be sure. Anyways, point being, there might be some like political backing to this thing. And on top of that, we had that tweet at the beginning of the year with Trump saying that they were going to make a crypto reserve with XRP, Solana, and Cardano. And it was just like, what? Like, what? And then everyone came out after that and was like, oh, excuse me. Then he came back out after that and was like, oh, and Bitcoin and Ethereum too, by the way. And that was mad funny because people were going crazy. People were so mad about that. And and I just found it super interesting that those were the three assets that they put in there because it's just like, why did we come up with those three? And I think part of it was this idea that these are American based crypto companies that are responsible for creating these digital assets or whatever. Um, anyway, so Solana, right? I'm like, all right, listen, you might be right about that. And in that moment, I was talking to him, and this is a lesson from me. Like in that moment, I was talking to him, and he kind of convinced me. He was like, well, what if that actually plays a part of this like political apparatus of what comes in the future with these digital assets? And I was like, you know what? You might be right about that. And I just bought some Solana right there. Like, instead of being so caught up in my own ideals around what I think about these assets, it's like, well, actually, being willing to change my mind and being willing to kind of like hear the different perspectives and be swift in that as the opportunities come about. Anyways, so those are my thoughts on Solana. It's like, yeah, there's something to it. You got David Sachs in the White House and he's a Solana owner and has been pushing it. And at the end of the day, like I'm not gonna fight the politics. I'm not gonna fight it. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. If I see that politicians are saying that these things are important or that they want to use them or whatever, like I'm not gonna argue against that. I'm gonna listen to them. And sometimes I'm gonna listen to that. We were talking about this on the Memes and Markets channel. Like sometimes I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna do the opposite of what you're saying, depending upon where the incentives may be. Right. Anyways. Oh, Dan is in the house. No way. Oh, digital. Excuse me, not Dan. Rob is in the house. We've got digital asset news in here. He says, you dang right, they're going to cut. Stephen Moran is saying 50 basis points more by the end of year. I can't believe I missed that. I got to be on top of my chat. What's up, Rob? If you're still around, definitely appreciating your presence. He said, Digital Asset News said, yes, Saint, he had some great content. Someone has to carry the torch when I'm gone. What was that in response to? Oh, he retracted his message, so I don't know. Oh, he said, Saint MT said, you were the first to have this young man on and started the rise of the channel. Oh yeah, man. He definitely was the first person to put me out there for sure. And super grateful for that. I mean, that video that I had made, the crypto exit or whatever, the 3 mistakes I made in crypto, that video I made like at the very beginning of my channel. So it was really, really funny that, to see people kind of catching on to that. And Rob, you definitely helped to push that video on a massive level. Because, the YouTube algorithm, the way that it works is, well, like I know, the things that I've observed is that like when you get that like organic traffic from an external source, that means that people are sharing it, right? And when people start sharing your video, that means that there's something really cool to it. So Rob, when you did that and people were kind of like, going straight to my video from you or whatever, like that organic type of reach definitely huge helps to push. And that definitely played a role in my whole channel. So, um, yeah, no, for sure. And let's see, what else did he say? Yeah, Digital Asset News. He said he had some great content. He corrected that to has. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Definitely still working on it. Memes and Market said 10 out of 10 experts agree that hitting the like button increases the chance of altcoin season by 69%. That is a good point. That's a good point. Definitely hit that like button, guys. Yeah, Saint MT, thanks for letting me know, because I honestly completely missed that. I completely missed that, and I guess I did miss it because it doesn't look like he's necessarily here anymore either. But that's super cool. Saint MTE in the building. Solana could be the new New York Stock Exchange. Listen, I'm watching. I'm watching it. I'm no longer a Solana hater. I'll tell you that. It's like the rapper or the artist that's on top of the game. It's like, look, like you just got to buy stock in that person's future. You can't just hate him forever. Outsidist said, I really don't like the fear mongering thumbnails constantly. It seems very disingenuous. Otherwise, you seem super smart. Well, I always love an opportunity to respond to stuff like that because I'm new to the game and constantly improving. And I did see someone comment on my last video. They said, I unsubscribed because of your thumbnails. I'm like, okay, fair enough. I think that if you're unsubscribing based on my thumbnails, then like I probably wasn't accomplishing my goal with you anyway. And that's fine. So yeah, when I started the channel, guys, like I'm not a designer. So I would just like throw my pictures up and like put little things on the screen. And the truth of the nature is, by the way, thank you everyone that's here for 100,000 subscribers. I don't think I've said that enough. I said it on like my other channel, but thank you for this. This is incredible, crazy growth. We've only been here for 3.5 months, to be clear. And so when I started, I was kind of just like putting myself in the thumbnail, and like that's cool. Like I had a lot of success with that, to be very clear. But the truth of the matter is in two things. This is the thumbnails and the editing. Guys, like my goal with this channel has been to like teach about the things that I've learned and that I continue to learn through the market. And the reality of the nature is, I don't like this. I would have never like been like, oh, I got to get these thumbnails that do fear mongering or whatever. I don't necessarily see it that way. Maybe the most recent one might feel that way. I do get that. Like it gets people to click. And my goal is to make sure that I'm accomplishing my mission of teaching people. So yeah, like at the end of the day, if this is going to get people to click, and then the editing, by the way, it gets people to watch, then I'm going to do that because it allows me to continue to accomplish my mission. So I definitely don't want to like offend people or participate in that in any degree other than it helps to accomplish the mission of the channel. But I definitely do understand. So, and it's just one of those things. It's just a part of the game, guys. Like I'm new to this, and I can see that the numbers go up, right? And at the end of the day, like that's my goal, is to teach. And if people can come in, and even the videos themselves, like my goal when I sit down and make these videos, like I'll have an idea of what I want to talk about, but then the first thing that comes to my mind is like, okay, what are the things in this video that like might be helpful to explain that people have not necessarily heard about in depth? And then I explain those things, right? Like just as an example, this most recent video, two of the things that I was like, this could probably be helpful to explain to people. One of them is leverage, right? So that was like the first thing that came to my mind when I sat down to make that video, was like, how can I explain leverage in a way that's going to make sense to people, so where like when they hear that word, they actually know what it means. And then the second thing was synthetic assets or synthetic stablecoins. So I was like, I'm going to use this whole video that I'm going to put together. I'm going to actually use it to teach those two concepts, right? So that's like the way that I think about this content, is I'm trying to find ways to package information in a way that will get people to want to hear about it. You know what I mean? So, so that hopefully gives you some explanation as to it. And I did see that you said like, it doesn't mean that I'm unsubscribing or anything like that. And I appreciate it for sure. But for all of my people that are here, like I really appreciate you. And I wanted you guys to know a little bit about that and why why the thumbnails have been changing, and we're trying new things out and stuff like that as well. So let's see. Wow, you guys are going hard in this chat. I really appreciate you. RD said subscribe to Memes and Markets, Keith and Bingo Live every Tuesday and Thursday at noon Eastern. You get to ask a lot of questions. Yeah, because right now, guys, it's super early, so there's not a ton of people on there. So definitely go out there and subscribe, and then we'll get some really cool guests on as you guys do that as well. So what do I think about silver while rates drop, said Jose Leon. So silver and gold are supposed to be like these inflation hedge kinds of assets. So technically, lower rates should mean more inflation. And in those scenarios, these assets can continue to rise. Now, the truth about gold and silver is that we're really seeing a much more like institutional bid, right? Or buying of these assets. It's not really like just purely your average investor that are buying these assets. It's like central banks and governments are buying gold, right? So that's a different kind of bid that we're seeing in the market. Okay, so Mr. Chink said, sentiment is so low right now. People capitulating. That's when we know it's about to go down. And Mr. Chinks, I agree. Josh Breedlove says, as long as Bitcoin is a top dog, I don't see it happening. Same thing with NVIDIA. It moves down a lot if AI stocks move down. Yeah, so he's saying that as long as Bitcoin's a top dog, it's going to be responsible for the rest of the market. So Saint MT says, not to say Keith weren't popping before going on Dan, but I was subbed at 36K. So to see you on 106, been a massive rise. Congrats, brother. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. The video, guys, that got me the most subscribers was actually the bond video. The bond video, 33% of you guys are here from that bond video, which is wild. You know, I wasn't even talking about crypto at that time, right? I really hadn't even done it yet. I only moved into crypto because honestly, it was what I know about. And I just wanted to see. I was like, oh, what if I just talk about the stuff that I want to talk about? What happens then? And it turns out that a lot of you guys continue to want to hear about that. And also I think it brought in a lot of new people. So yeah. Thank you, Scott Ellis. The last E in impasse is silent. Yeah, I have no idea how to pronounce that word. I appreciate it. When I said it, I was like, somebody's going to think I'm an idiot for that one. But I thank you for actually telling me how to say it, or at least helping me toward that. All right, let me catch up to you guys real quick. Okay, so should have bought Tesla. Oh man, you know how many people are saying that? Let me tell you. Oh man, oh man. I met a guy when I lived in Miami who was a very young guy. He's like the youngest professor at a college called Florida Memorial University, and he was like telling his professors about Tesla when he was in high school, and he has a Tesla now, which is pretty funny. I think I love like the story of like the people who were buying Tesla early and then they were able to buy their own Teslas through the stock that they owned. I think that's such a cool trajectory of like how things have gone. And even just back from 2020, guys, like look at the difference of the price. And this has gone through some splits, right? But 2020, you had the price of Tesla at $30. Am I that's crazy, right? So a 10x on a stock in a 10-year period. And I'm feeling like it's just crazy the amount of gains that people saw in Tesla and also in Nvidia as well. Let's be clear. Nvidia, I guess, is probably even more dramatic. But imagine being able to buy Tesla back in 2012 for like $5 when it's at 500 almost now. So 100x on a stock, right? And sustainably for the most part. I mean, obviously you got some, some of the other political stuff that he's got going on, but crazy, crazy gains. Let's see here, guys. Okay, Outsidist said, I will reiterate, I'm not unsubbing. I like your information a lot. I just don't think the sky is falling. Yeah, no, I agree, man. It's just that people they tap in with that stuff, guys. And my goal is to like I hope you guys don't think that my information is as much about like just price go up and down. I mean, this is definitely a lot more like that. But my goal is to like bring people in with that kind of a headline, and then it's like, oh, by the way, like here are some of the things to think about around that as well. Uh, you and FTR Media, you're a great teacher. You have a great macro sense and deep knowledge of a space that is hard for many to digest. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for also putting me on your channel as I've continued to grow here. It's massively, massively appreciated. And it was really cool to see that because I've definitely seen your content before. And I was like, oh, he's got me on his page. Very cool. Alan Watts, by the way, I love the username. I'm bullish on Keithy channel. You as a reputable YouTube economist. Okay, he's a reputable YouTube economist. He forecast 500K subscribers by fourth quarter 2026. I've never heard the term YouTube economist, but I absolutely love it, and I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. This is cool. Um, let's see. Hans M says, I don't think they're going to top anytime soon. I think this is going to be a long bull market for precious metals. Yeah, I totally agree with precious metals. I personally believe, and here we go, I'm publicly saying this, that we're kind of just starting with what's happening there. I think in the next little bit of time, next couple of years, we could probably see some crazy runs up in this prices. I'm not saying to buy gold. I don't listen, no financial advice around here, but and we are at the top of the, you know what I mean? Like buying a top is always really hard, but that's the reason why I also think that gold could go crazy because right now, or rather, we've been saying that all year. Like I noticed in March, I was like, oh wait, like we're at an all-time high in gold, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to come back down now. And what have we seen? We've seen the price continue to go up like another 33+% since March. I guess I could pull it up while I talk about it, but like I remembered having that thought to myself. I'm like, well, but like we're talking about an institutional level, government level bid, right? That's actually just now being caught up to in the market. Like this has actually been going on for years. And now the market is kind of catching up to that. Like, well, this doesn't have to actually stop anytime soon. And what we've seen since around that time or since December 24 is massive runs up and a massive another leg up. And I'm just not going to be overly surprised if we get another consolidation and then another big push up to where we're looking at 5,000 plus gold in the very near future. Um, let's see here. Marcus S says big bear market and stagflation coming in 2026, but first a big rally in November for crypto. That's kind of I'm not going to be surprised by big pushes up and then having things get a little bit ugly for everybody. Jose Leon says it's part of the game. Exactly. People don't understand. Then this educated content is not for them. Outside, he said, you're saying like it's a necessary evil. As someone who isn't a creator, I get what you're saying, honestly. I'm not between a rock and a hard place, and you are kind of are with the thumbnails. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of been like, honestly, just testing and trying. I'm still so new, guys. Like, I've put out less than 100 videos so far. So, just trying to see what we can do to continue to spread the word and the message. Z on says, love the growth, man. You speak with such knowledge and conviction. Doesn't hurt that you're a handsome fella too. Oh, thank you, Z. I appreciate that. Um, let's see, Hans, Marcus. That's why precious metals. What did Marcus say again? So, with all of this said, do you guys think that we're in a bubble with AI or what? I know Artie said, yeah, we're in a bubble. And what do you guys think about this whole like, tariff situation? Do you think that this is going to go on for 4 years and like it never gets solved? Or do you think that we'll finally get something worked out there? Wisdom A said, no worries, keep using ways to get more people, then keep it real with traders teaching and being neutral. Don't be a moon boy or a doomer bear. Let's make money up and down for real. That's a big part of the approach for me is just staying super, super balanced throughout all of this. So I appreciate your words there, man. That's definitely the goal. Philip said, could you make a macroeconomics education playlist? I could work on something like that. Zion said, new Bitcoin cycle is going to be crazy. I mean, look, things are different right now. I can't lie. Things are a little bit different in the way that the chart is forming. Whether that means we don't get a bear market, let me be clear. I don't think that that's the case, but things are definitely very different in the way that Bitcoin is moving. Eric said, I feel like I'm overinvested in semiconductors. Well, sir, you should be careful about that. Because it is a very concentrated bet. Like, and it's a very narrative driven bet is the thing that I would be the most concerned with, you know. Uh, okay, let me see real quick. Outside said, I got a lot of silver last year and I'm glad about it. Congratulations. Congratulations. I started buying silver in 2019. Let's see. Wisdom A question: has Wall Street priced in the rate cuts for 2025 already? So bear cycle comes in a few months. Strong dollar, low rates. Just saying. Yeah, I will admit that. Yeah, Wall Street absolutely knows that there's cuts coming, and we saw that at the last rate cut. It was kind of like nothing burger because the market already knew. So I do think that they're pricing it in, especially with so much vocal understanding of where we're at with rates and what Stephen Moran has been saying around what they expect to happen with rates next. That was Digital Assets News, Mr. Rob also commenting on that. Alan Watts said, I saw you at 7K subs. Wow. That's so cool. That's so cool. Yeah, that was a different era. I remember I was celebrating my first 500 subscribers. And I did a post and I was like, oh, thank you guys for 500 subscribers. And then within like 3 days, it was like 5,000 subscribers. And I was like, oh, thanks for 5,000 subscribers. And then it just kept going crazy. So super, super grateful for all of you guys that have been here since the beginning. And yeah, I hope that we can, like the YouTube economist said, get up to where we're actually reaching a little bit more of a mainstream audience, and continuing to just like learn and teach. Because you guys also teach me a lot of cool stuff, both from the comments and in these chats like this. And that's the goal here, is to just create an ecosystem where we're all learning from one another. And by the way, if you haven't already, click the link in the description of this video so that you can actually get access to my free Discord community. It's going to ask you for your email and phone number. And then from there, you'll get access and redirected right to the Discord. Let's see. We have, did we see VI people said, Big AI, did you see the PayPal exec who accidentally minted 300 trillion in PYUSD stablecoins? You guys got to follow me on Memes and Markets. We talked about that on yesterday. We talked about everything stablecoins, and I'll put a post. So look out for a community tab post. I'll put a post about that tonight, so you guys can check that out as well. But yeah, we talked about that one, and that one was really wild. Basically, Paxos, who is the custodian for the PayPal USD stablecoin, they actually, let's see if this impacted the charts at all real quick too. Can we see PYPUSD, whatever it is? I don't even know. Basically they accidentally burned 300 million or something like that. And then they tried to remint that 300 million, but then they accidentally minted 300 trillion PYUSD. And so that was quite an event. There has to be, okay, here it is. And that was quite an event. And then they fixed it after like 30 minutes. People were making fun of them because they said we immediately fixed the problem. And then they were like, 30 minutes later, you fixed the problem. That's immediately. Like, I don't know about all that. So guys, like, we're still so early in these stable coins, and like there's a lot of issues that clearly can occur. And to be fair, like Paxos is not like the bigger of all of the stablecoin providers, but at the end of the day, like to even have that be an option that someone could just accidentally mint 300 trillion, which is like more than all the money that exists in the system, is a little bit concerning. um, Imagine someone had taken some of that and like tried to buy things with it, right? What would happen after that? I don't know exactly how that would work from a technical perspective, but I think that technically could have been possible. AGC says, bro, it's just playing the game with the thumbnails. No shame there. Thanks, brother. VI Peoples. From my understanding, the staking and liquid staking makes stablecoins appealing. The access to digitized, yield-bearing, regulated products also require stablecoin facilitation to happen. I didn't see the original question. Phoenix said, I think you're a pretty fire teacher, bro. Clear and concise videos are awesome. Thank you. Rusty said, how do people tell how long ago they subscribed? Honestly, I don't know. Oh, Big AI said, how is buying a stablecoin that much different than holding an actual dollar? The price only varies 1/1000th of a percent. Yeah, so back to the answer that VI people said, well, stablecoins just have functionality that you don't get with your typical um, with your dollars, right? So you have digital dollars that exist in your bank accounts, right? That when you have your digital account that you log into with Chase or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily lead to you being able to use that dollar in a blockchain space, which on a blockchain, you can do cool things with any asset that you have on it. And so smart contracts, right, are the major use case for a stablecoin on a blockchain at least. Now, technically, stablecoins can exist like through the providers themselves. They have their own little private mechanisms that they can kind of like trade these stable coins through. But the major benefit to the average person is going to be that you can now use your stable coins or your dollars in smart contracts, and that can allow you to do all kinds of cool stuff like getting yield on chain, like lending and also borrowing them without any sort of intermediary and things of that nature. So there's a lot of cool functionality that you get from a dollar outside of that. So hopefully that answers a little bit of that. Marcus said it's time to plan profit targets, and this is a whole point of the stuff that I'm doing is in my communities and whatnot. Is like we have to come up with strategies for if we're going to take profits, what that's going to look like, and if we're not, why and how we're going to do that, and making sure that we have the full picture in place around that. So if you haven't already, click the link in the description to join the free community. You'll see other opportunities where we can talk a little bit more personally about how to make sure that you have an exit strategy in place. Now, MVP Kryptonite said, Keith, you got a great, calm, and clear way of expressing your thoughts. Easy to listen to, tone as well. Keep going, G. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Macro from the trading view list. Gustavo said, hey, man, what is the macro from your trading view list? This stuff is also inside of my Discord and whatnot. We start to go through some of those things. So be sure to join. Check out Cloud9 says, check out. I guess I can't really just, I'm not gonna just read out names of tokens like that. I gotta be more careful about that. Marcus says the rotation from gold to Bitcoin will be historic. Interesting thought. Saint MTE said the fact that normies are lining up to buy physical gold is signs of a top for gold. Whether money from precious metals flows into crypto remains to be seen, but it makes things super intriguing. Everything's in a bubble, Marcus, or excuse me, Hans said. And then Sam I am said everything's in a bubble. Hans said definite bubble. Words in the Wilderness said best newcomer with a fresh, holistic outlook. Thanks. Victoria said, Keith, you have a great speaking, teaching voice. Keep it up. Thank you, Victoria. Knox Space, Keith the Beast, LFG. Thanks, guys. So you think precious metals go higher the cycle before the pops, says Hunter? Personally, not gonna be surprised by that. Not gonna be surprised by that. Knox Base said some words. I appreciate your words and for having my back. Sam I am said, I just figured it out. Keith, you all have a radio TV personality and voice. No wonder I can ride and listen. Great to be part of your journey. Man, I appreciate that, Sam I am. I really do. And I love that you check us out on Memes and Markets as well. That's a really awesome thing. We really, really appreciate that. Alex said, hey, y'all. What up, Alex? It's been a minute. Haven't heard from you, man. How you doing? Okay. Do you think the government will swap their gold and silver for Bitcoin? Says Lemon Moto. I mean, that would be a wild geopolitical move. um, I happen to think I would tend to think that governments would shy away from something like that, as they would. Governments like control, right? And you can control the physical asset. You can't control the Bitcoin thing. So I would be very. I would not expect the government to do anything like that. All right, all right, all right. Keith, Saint MT, Keith, what are your views on privacy coins? By the way, Zcash, Dash, Monero, etc. Plus, everyone is aware of when you got into ETH. You told the story. Your smart friend, if I recall. Oh, is everyone aware of when you got into ETH? Yeah, I mean, I found out about ETH in 2000 and what was it? 17. Yeah, my friend told me about it. bought a little bit, but I was a young kid. So my thoughts on privacy coins. All right, now listen, guys. One of my biggest videos, it's my second biggest video, is what they're not telling you about crypto. And a lot of people in that video were commenting like, dude, this is why Monero is so important. You got to know about Monero. And I haven't fully studied Monero, but I know that it's been used in a lot of like, criminal activities. And I know that people that have used it have been caught. Now, obviously, if the goal is just privacy, right, and not like you're trying to do something nefarious, then you're going to have a lot more of a, how would I say that? Like even with Bitcoin, like, yes, it's pseudonymous. So technically your name is not on your transactions. But if a government entity or even just these companies that trace blockchains wanted to find you, they can. And with Bitcoin, it's just very easy because it's like, oh, dude did this and that. But with Monero, for instance, you have these scrambling techniques. And this is like my very basic primitive understanding of it, where you basically have like new addresses that are being minted whenever you're using it. And so it's very hard to track where things are and stuff like that. So in that scenario, yeah, it's way harder. The question becomes when you're taking things back off, right? Or you're getting out of Monero, right? What happens? Now, you might not need to come out of Monero. You might just use Monero and that's your currency and that's it. Hey, there you go. As long as you're not doing anything nefarious, then you'll be fine. Um, but do I think that there's some like massive value or use case from it? I think the way that I look at cryptocurrency and whatnot is like, do governments want it to be there? Do governments want people to have privacy coins? I personally don't think so. Right. So that to me is going to lower my overall long-term outlook for the valuation of something like that. Like, let's come up with where has there been now, the cool thing about crypto is like you don't necessarily have a company that's necessarily behind it, right? You have these foundations and these other reasons why these things exist that aren't necessarily for profit motives. And in that scenario, you have things like, for instance, TLS layer security, internet types of security that has occurred that wasn't for profit and therefore it is successful. Now, but what we have with cryptocurrencies is the idea of being able to actually purchase, right, the utility, right, of a particular protocol. So if I can have ownership in the use case, right, or of the utility of a network or of a protocol that has a function, then technically that could be successful without there being some sort of for-profit motive for that thing existing. But rather the for-profit is the fact that people are using it and I get profit for the fact that people use it. So, like, I don't think that privacy coins are just like a no, never. I think it's a part of your portfolio if it's a narrative that you believe in. Now, do I think that do I think that they're going to continue to face a lot of resistance from governments around the world? Like, probably. But I'm very cynical in that regard, I guess, of like, I think that's the word, where I see that I just look at the ways that can go wrong. And it's one of those things where if it does go wrong, it's a zero. You know what I mean? Rather than like it being you know, instead of a 2x, it's a 1. It's like one of those things where it's like, yeah, if that gets banned, then what? And I know it's not easy to ban it. Trust me, I understand that. But if they want to and they will put resources towards finding ways to make that illicit activity, then, you know, and that can just come with penalties alone. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on like privacy coins. And then when I say that, I really just mean like Monero, because Monero is the only one where it's like actually, like they actually can make it really hard to trace it. um. Anyways, let's see. Any insights on anything that you think could be undervalued right now? The things that I think are undervalued right now are things like interoperability. People aren't paying enough attention to interoperability. And I'll continue to say that probably until people start paying attention to interoperability and the fact that we've got thousands and thousands of blockchains and they don't all know how to talk to each other. So what? We're just going to all have our own blockchains? Like, come on. If this technology is actually going to be a real thing in the mainstream, then we're going to have to change that. We have to have ways for these technologies to talk to one another. So Outsidist said, can I get your thoughts on Jay Claver and XRP? He's saying insane things about it, but seems intelligent. He has an invested interest in XRP and says he's betting his entire portfolio on it. LOL. I love this question. I'm a huge fan of Jay Claver. What would you guys think if I had him on? Would you guys be cool with doing a collab with Jay Claver? What do you think of that? What do you think of that? No, I respect him, and he comes from, well, I don't know where he comes from as far as his expertise, but he definitely talks about some of the wealth management side of all this stuff, and I love that because it's something that not a lot of people talk about. I'll probably talk about it a little bit more, but he does some really cool stuff with helping people set up their LLCs. Talks about different ways to think about these assets in terms of like not selling them but borrowing off of them, and that's a really really important thing for people to understand. So I really respect that about him. Absolutely. Oh, you guys get a little spicy in there. Hold on now. Han says, I like XRP, but I think Jake is trying to get views. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a lot of XRP influencers that go hard, right? And I don't blame them. Like, obviously I've thought about like making my channel more XRP focused, but I feel like in the short term that could work. But then in the long term, it's like, am I going to be accomplishing my mission of teaching people about finance generally? And I think not. And I think that's just one of the things. It's like it's really cool because there's some like really cool guys. Like I respect all of them. I appreciate all the XRP influencers. I mean, I say all of them, but like obviously there's some people that like are just a little bit more fluff. People like Jay Claver, he's bringing like real unique thought and insight to the game, and I massively appreciate and respect his work. Um, Rothar, is there gold markets in a few hours, or it's done for the weekend? It's done for the weekend. Done for the weekend. Yeah, guys, hit that like button. Hit that like button. Let's see. Trump. VIP people said Trump's F bomb made my day. I don't know what happened with that. I didn't see that. Thoughts on TRWA? Tharwa. I feel like that's being spammed so much that I don't even know. Like, is that a real thing? I'm not even going to talk about. I'll do my research after. And I'll get back to you on that. El Gran Jefe said, like the calm, no nonsense delivery. Greetings from Portugal. Do they say Jefe in Portuguese? What up, El Gran Jefe? Bing bong, bro. Can I just say you came out of nowhere and you are absurdly smart. I'm so impressed with your knowledge. Glad your channel blew up in such a short period of time. Well, listen, Bing bong. I appreciate that. David Williams said we good. Okay, appreciate the stream, brother. Yeah, thanks for being here, Hunter. We appreciate you greatly, massively. Criticism mixed with appreciation is more important than a yes man's opinion. Outside, so yeah, you guys relax over there. Okay, calm down. Dreamcatcher said came in late. So did we go higher for the alts, or are we still in the bull market? And how long do you think it lasts the cycle? I think we got some time. Gran Jefe said, Keith, there have been many people talking about a play where the U.S. revalues gold, but above market price. Why would they? Lots of other countries have more gold and would benefit. That's a really good point. That's a really good point, and I think that's a really important thing to think about here. Is like countries aren't going to act in a way that's going to be against their own interests. And it turns out that I think China and Russia have a large amount of gold. And so this kind of comes back to the theme of the things that I talked about in the channel, which, probably sound out there and crazy until you consider that kind of a perspective. If the world needs to move into a hard money world, and we have a world where the hard money exists outside of the United States, then the United States is going to have to get really creative about how it wants to move into that hard money world, meaning that there may be some sort of a way to utilize digital assets and throw them into the mix in the way that they go about that. That to me, when you really think about it, kind of doesn't make it too far fetched because you've made a really good point there. The US can't just try to revalue gold higher, and even that would be a very difficult thing to just kind of pull off unless everyone agrees upon it. And then all of a sudden, we're now economically inferior. So, yeah, definitely something to think about there. Let's see. Gustavo, what's your Discord and what are your thoughts on this and that? The Discord is the Discord. It's just a community where we can all come together and chat. And I'll also obviously keep you guys up to date with everything that I'm doing and get your guys' feedback and opinions and stuff like that. Alex says, I totally agree with your view on privacy coins, Keith. They may get banned in the future. So why? Oh, so they're not good long-term investments risk-wise. Yeah, I mean, it's just something to think about. You just got to be willing to take a zero on something like that. That's all I'm going to say. Oh my goodness. One Words in the Wilderness says, I believe we have just about 2 days to claim our midnight tokens. I haven't done that yet. That's a very clever privacy project. It's a dual token. The privacy function is generated by the Unshield Night token on the claim. So I'm going to put that in my to-do list right now. I can't believe I've waited this long because Ben, everybody on Memes and Markets, Ben told me about Midnight token and the Midnight project, where basically if you own XRP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, something like that, like basically if you do crypto, you get an airdrop from Midnight. So if you're watching this, make sure, man, you stuck around this long, make sure you go and claim your airdrop from Midnight. And also hit that like button on the way out of here because words in the wilderness, my goodness, thank you for that. Chainlink, we see a lot of people talk about Chainlink. Hey, you guys know how I feel about Chainlink for the most part. VI Peoples, this crypto run is setting us up for total digital surveillance. Nothing moves a man's money quicker than seeing his neighbor get rich. Antonio Gonzalez. I don't know who you are, but I'm not going to say anything about that. The FIFA Broders. No response. No response. VI Peoples, I'm about to start my channel streams. Had a major life setback. So after 20 months, finally getting back on my feet. Just got on the Discord. Need to get you X so we can chop it up. Yeah. Hit me up on X. That's usually the easiest way to get in touch as well. Also in the Discord, you can DM me, but just be careful. Speaking of interoperability, Midnight is released on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, BAT, AVAX, XRP, BNB. That is a Cardano partner chain tech. Yeah. So everybody, check out Midnight Project. Check out Midnight Project. If you take nothing away from this video, go and check out the Midnight Project and claim your airdrop. ETH or Solana? Ooh, you know what Tom Lee would say. El Gran Jefe. No, this is actually said in Spanish. It's in Portuguese. It'd be o ganj chefe or ganj chefe. Nice that you recognize the difference. Yeah, man, because I don't speak any of the Portuguese, especially not in Portugal. I went to Brazil last year and I started to learn some of that, so I probably still pronounce that wrong. O ganj chefe. O ganj chefe. Tell me. Sorry for spamming. It's from the UAE. Well, yeah, I mean, you scared me. You scared me. Now I'm gonna have to like check it out on my own first. Saint MTE, Bing Bong, you're a BitBoy watcher, specifically the Frankie Candle era. Good times. I don't remember what Bing Bong said to make him say that back to him. Okay. Bing Bong said, oh, Bing Bong is going in on the Portuguese. Ai, jefe caraca. Eu estoy aprendendo vossa língua agora. I actually do know what that means, or some of it at least. He said, I am learning your language now. Uma linguagem muito bonita, eu acho. He thinks that it's a beautiful language. All right. Caleb Michal said, I have about 80% of my net worth in crypto. 3 altcoins, different sectors. I'm heavy convicted on for my own reasons, not others' opinion. At what time should I decide to reevaluate? That sounds like a very personal question, but that's a lot of your net worth to have in crypto. And also in only 3 altcoins. But I always preach the idea of keeping a certain level of concentration in your crypto portfolio, because otherwise, well, I talked to one guy. I'll talk to one guy about a few months ago. I'm acting like it's been so long. And he told me, and I started to laugh because it's not funny, but like he had like 300 different cryptos. And he knew, right? He was like, look, I messed up. I got in the game and I just bought everything. What do I do? And I was just like, bro, like, I don't even know what to tell you to do. Because it's like, you've now got all of these different cryptos, and to sell all of them is going to create a new tax liability. It's not funny. It's not funny. Sorry. But anyways, I honestly think that approach is definitely better than having like 300 different cryptos that you own $1 or $5 off. So anyways, there is a point for privacy coins. If people think they're private and governments can snoop, also like Tor. Sometimes governments like privacy for their own dark stuff. Good point there, El Gran Jefe. Per thing, what airdrop? The Midnight token is doing an airdrop. Check out the Midnight project from Cardano. Words in the Wilderness, cool you knew about it. I really didn't until my man Ben Levitt. So Memes and Markets, follow us there. We're going to stay on top of all that kind of stuff. How do I claim the airdrop? I actually have no idea, SHA-101, but I'm going to figure it out, and we got like 2 days to do it. Mr. Brendan Riggs in the building. He said, Keith, how are we feeling about my boopity bop? Yeah, I don't know anything about that, Brendan. Alejandro Gomez, when are you going to have Waters Above back on your channel? We'll have to see. I'd love to have him back on soon. I mean, I enjoyed it. It seemed that you guys enjoyed it, so that's awesome. MVP Kryptonite reminds me I need to jump back on Duolingo. Guys, you'll notice that I love languages. I really do. Cloud9, I'm going to look into it, but you've been spamming it so much that once again, I got to do my due diligence, guys. I got to do my due diligence on this stuff. El Gran Jefe Bing Bong, you'll do fine. Remember, Portuguese is spoken dry, while Brazilian and Spanish are kind of sung, sweet. Easy to go to Spanish, French, Italian as well from Portuguese. Abraham Garcia, your Portuguese is pretty decent, bro. I don't know if he's talking to me or somebody else, but I'm working on it. Bing Bong said, yeah, bro, I get my Spanish and Portuguese mixed up constantly. 89% lexical similarity, so they are so close. Yeah. And French, 70% lexical similarity, not as bad, but lots of similar words too. Totally Awesome says, they do have their own private coin. Look into the Canton network. That one I have heard of. Words in the Wilderness says, Waters Above was an interesting guest. Yeah, I can understand that. There was a lot of, different types of feedback, but the truth is the video did really well and people watched it. And that was cool to me. That was meaningful because it was the first time ever doing anything like that. So this is the first time having anyone on the channel and the first time ever doing a long form video like that. So I caught up to the chat, everybody. I think we definitely have come down a lot in the numbers. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys being here. You guys are my familia, like really for being here at this point in the journey. Like, yeah, we're at 100K and yeah, we blew up really fast. So, but like a lot of you guys have been here since those days. Like, who was it? Oh man. Alan Watts said you've been here since 7K. And it's like most of you that are here right now, it's only a couple hundred people. Like most of y'all have probably been here since, the earlier days. So if we do end up getting any further from here where we are now, then like just know that you guys are playing a massive role in that for being here. So super grateful for it. As you guys can see, I got my silver plaque. So we're in the game now. We're officially in the YouTube game. And I am forever grateful to all of you for participating in that and to so much more, guys, in the future. And if you guys have suggestions for stuff I should do, I know I owe you guys an HBAR video. My goodness. It's crazy. You guys have gone to the extent to where you're on memes and markets asking for the HBAR video. And I am so like happy about that. I'm like, okay, guys, I will make sure that we get you an HBAR video. It's been hard though. It's just like there's so much stuff going on and I'm trying to do my best to teach about all these other things, and it's not something that I've done a ton of research on. So I'm like, I know if I do it now, I'm like, you guys have made put so much pressure on me that I'm like, all right, if I make an HBAR video, that thing needs to be like spot on. So anyways, El Gran Jefe said, Keith, a clue. If you get a couple of Latin languages, you can sort of read the others. PT, Portuguese and Spanish and French, I speak well, but I can read Italian, Catalan, also lots of Latin words in English as well. Yeah, dude. I've had this weird journey where I learned a nice amount of Spanish in high school, and then I lived in Miami, so I got to practice a nice amount. But like, I'm still not where I really need to be with it. But I just love languages so much that like, yeah, I just started learning some Portuguese and Italian and not so much French. And so I'm just like, I even started learning some German. It's ridiculous. It's like, all right, I need to like sit down and like do my Spanish, and then probably start to move to like Portuguese or Italian. I love Italian. Italian is que bella. The blue bus driver. Can we please get XRP to $750? I want to see Jake Claver win his bet. I don't know what his bet is, but wow. All right. Listen, it's a high number. Bing Bong said, can you recommend some books on finance and money making? I actually am gonna film a video on this probably tomorrow. So I will get you guys a video about my favorite books. Watching the Gulf Coast at TGIF. Yeah, man, for real. Amar, I know who that is. He said, Keith, win Keith coin. No Keith coin coming anytime soon. I appreciate you stopping by, man. That's super cool. Short Fridays said Alan Watts. Yeah, Alan Watts was in the chat. Can you believe that, guys? He came back and he joined the chat. No, but Someone's name on here is Alan Watson. I think that's super cool because I have Alan Watts has played a big role in my life. P says, "Hey Keith, are you into gold and silver or just crypto and stocks?" I'm into everything. I don't know if you guys been paying attention, but like I'm into everything. I'm into the entire global financial market, and that's the goal here is to really, really. We've been talking about crypto because everyone wants to hear about it, but the truth of the matter is that it also is such a massive part of what's happening on the global macroeconomic scale. Like you can't ignore if you're following global macroeconomics, you know that the major theme is inflation, right? And crypto, to me, right, is just a manifestation of the fact that we've got global inflation, and the way that crypto has continued to grow over the past decade and a half is because of the insane levels of rampant inflation that we've seen ever since we detached from the gold standard in 76, 74. And so I'm into all of it. It just happens that crypto is the most interesting, fun thing to talk about, and the thing that like people want to hear about. So we say, hey, come talk about crypto, and then we want to kind of back people into like, okay, but why is crypto so important? Oh, because fiat currencies don't work, and someone decided that there was a reason to create something else, and then we work backwards and talk about what are bonds, for instance, right, and things like that. So, um, Val Repute said, "Nah, I'm brand new. Well, welcome in." Blue Bus Driver said, "Keithy is a boss." Thank you, my dude. Thank you. Saint MT, congrats, my boy. Thanks, guys. PHX silver plaque. Yes, yes. And then Outsider said, depending on when you got that silver plaque, it's likely appreciative and value significant. Guys, the silver plaque is not actually silver. At least I don't think it is. That'd be wild. No, it's not silver. That'd be really cool though. That's hilarious. I don't know if you're joking or not, but that's funny. El Gran Jefe, Latin. Oh, I'm not gonna read that. But I think the point is that like yeah, it's very similar. Yeah, yeah, dude, super cool. R Digi, are we screwed or what? Well, it depends on what you got going on. I think I'm all right, and I think a lot of people here are all good too. Ryan McDougal, thanks, Keith, you're awesome. No, thanks to you guys. Amar, I also said pump my bags, please and thanks. Uh, yeah, I can't do that, Amar. Let's see. Words in the wilderness. That is the right mindset. I'm not sure what it was, but I appreciate it. And then congrats on 100K, brother. Amar, my man. Super, super grateful for you. It wasn't me, Julian. It was the liquor. Says, I'm new here. I appreciate you, man. I really enjoy your videos on the bond markets. I've learned a lot. Do you plan on doing any more about it? Or the JPY carry trade slowly unwinding? Yeah, guys. I mean, I'm gonna start mixing up my content a lot more. I think we're at a point where now we can start to reach people, and the big thing that we have just taken off with is the crypto thing. I mean, honestly, though, the bond video, once again, is 33% of my entire subscribers is coming from that bond video. So I want to try to reach back into some of those topics because I know it's the thing that a lot of people in crypto also do continue to want to know about. At least right? My whole journey has been I started off in crypto and then I started learning stocks and then I started learning more about like the global monetary system and things of that nature. So I'm trying to kind of like continue to teach all of those things backwards as people come into crypto. It's like, okay, but why does crypto actually matter? Because of fiat currencies, because of the fact that bond markets aren't working the way that they're supposed to, the fact that there's just a lot of different things that are happening on a global scale regarding interest rates and things of that nature. So, yeah. Alejandro Gomez said, Keith said, I'm into money. Oh, right. Exactly. Yeah. It's like, guys, look, what's moving? How can we take advantage of asymmetric opportunities in the markets? Right. Period. Now, I don't bet or anything like that. I don't gamble, but I'm always looking for ways that we can take advantage of asymmetric opportunities in the markets. Amar said Chainlink is still goaded. Ooh, he said still, as if that's something we've been talking about for years now. P, what do you think of tokenized gold silver? Do you think that solves one of their major downside? Um, I think it's dangerous too. I think it's great. I think it's great, especially if you can do on-chain finance with it, which I don't think is much of a thing at the moment, where it's essentially you could like lend on it or stake it or things of that nature. Um, so until then, it's kind of like just a risk. I mean, you can also hold ETFs of gold, like the GLD. Someone brought that up earlier. I'm just now responding. You said, what about GLD? Yeah, so GLD, for instance, is an ETF where you have these companies that will take custody and store the gold on your behalf, and you're just buying paper gold, right? And so in those situations, once again, you've got this custodial risk. And the way that I always teach people is like, you just want to spread your risk. So let's say you want to own gold as 20% of your portfolio. Well, in my case, I'm going to have 5% of my gold physically. I'm going to have 5% of my gold in an ETF. I'm going to have another 5% in a different ETF on a different broker. I'm going to uh, hold 5% in a tokenized version of gold. Like diversifying your holdings, because there's a lot of different things that can happen. And this is the whole point of what I'm trying to help teach here as well. Is like, if you want to be an independent investor on a global scale, like you have to diversify your holdings. And this is the stuff that we go over inside of my programs and whatnot. So be clear. If you have not already, click the link in the description, join the Discord for free, where we'll continue to talk about stuff. And if you want more information, or if you want to get on the live calls, you can join those programs. But in the meantime, the things that I want people to understand is how to diversify your risk. Not diversifying your risk is not just like, oh, I'm going to buy Apple and I'm going to buy Tesla. Like, no. Diversifying your risk has a lot more to do with other things now, especially in this world where we can actually take custody of our assets. There's a whole different level of risk that we have to look at now. We have to look at custodial risk. We have to look at security risks. We have to look at just the exchanges themselves and the risks that occur when we have these highly volatile moments. And you just want to make sure that you have that fully mapped out as far as where are your risks in the game, because we're having to create new risk models that haven't existed in the past. Um, Kwan J, I'm going to skip the first part, said, I watch you from my TV, but just wanted to reach out since I caught a live to say hi. Thank you. And I follow you both on my YouTube accounts. So double follower here. Very much appreciated, Kwan J. I really appreciate you. El Gran Jefe, El Gran Jefe says, Keith, does Bitcoin correlate closely to stocks, S&P 500, or are they parallel but not correlate? Is it seen as a refuge from risk, risky refuge from inflation? The truth is they're highly correlated. More than NASDAQ than anything, but highly correlated. AEO, hey Keith, do you have any college degrees? I do have a college degree. I actually do. I wonder what makes you ask. Amar, as someone who started in tech and crypto, the TradFi videos are very interesting. Oh, very cool, man. Thank you. Yeah, I think like the tech crowd, there's two sides of the tech crowd that I think I want to reach, because there's the tech people that are crypto curious, but then there's the tech people that are just like finance curious too. And I think those are interesting things, because well, look, the real distinction that I'm trying to say is that there's tech people that are already into crypto, but not, let me put it this way. There's tech people that don't know anything about crypto. And then there's a whole other side of tech people, which is probably just more encompassing, is like the people who just want to know more about finance that are into tech too. And I feel like I'm trying to craft a channel that can bring those people in. All right. So Kwan J, oh yeah, congratulations. Thank you, Kwan J. Words in the Wilderness, especially for helping me with 2 subscribers at once. Thank you, Kwan J. Words in the Wilderness. It is the right mindset to be interested in the markets as a whole and societal and economic shifts. Crypto will one day become the context for all finance. Right. That's how I look at it. It wasn't Julian. It wasn't me, Julian. It was the liquor. What do you think about CZ's Dex, new coin Aster, the decentralized little brother to Binance? I honestly, like, I've been so caught up, guys, that I don't look at stuff like that anymore. I don't look at new projects enough. Have to get some people involved with that. Kwan J, what are some good gold to purchase for physical? You can buy gold anywhere. I wouldn't. Nobody's paying me to do that, so I'm not gonna do that. Kwan J, Hearts, and Mihir, my guy, nice plaque. I appreciate you, Mihir. Thank you for popping by and saying that. All right, guys, it's been 2 hours. I can't believe there's still 170 of you here. I really appreciate you. I gotta get going with my day, and I'm super grateful for you all. If you haven't already, click the link in the description, join the Discord, and we will continue to talk about things like this and more over there. And you'll get access to any other opportunities to get access to our live calls that we're doing weekly, and some of the course material that I've been putting together as well. So thank you so much, and I will see you guys very, very, very soon. Keith D signing out.